everyone. It's January 12th, 2016. It's Tuesday. It's Harp Tuesday. Welcome to the second Harp Tuesday of 2016. And last week, of course, was episode 100, which is pretty cool. And I did an episode on buying a harp. And so this week we're back to my look at my Fantasy on Greensleeves, the lever harp version. So episode 99, I looked at the introduction and the theme. And this week I'm going to look at Variation 1, which I just played for you. So Variation 1 is a very flowing variation, right? We've got just basically, excuse me, this steady stream of 16th notes, kind of trading back between the hands, right? A lot of fun to play. I really enjoyed playing this one. I enjoyed writing this one. And when we're practicing it, one way to practice, right, is to play it quite slowly and firmly and really feeling a nice connection with the strings. Maybe thinking a little bit of pressure on the strings before you play. Maybe almost thinking it's a pause between notes, so we really get to feel each note is weighted and sunk in and good connection with the strings. Maybe even slower than that. And that's going to be a great way to work not only on sound, right, on trying to create a really great sound, but also on eventual speed and smoothness, so that we're really grooving into the fingers, as it were, how they're going to feel both that firm, strong feeling, but also relaxed, right, so that we're trying to really articulate each note. Again, that maybe sense. It's almost like there's a breath in between each note or something. We're really feeling the weight of each note and the connection and the full articulation of each note. But we're also trying to feel a relaxation in between each note, right? And so it's like a strong. We're working. We're also trying to feel relaxed, and we want to kind of bring aspects of both of those feelings when we go faster, so that we want the sound, and again maybe it's a little bit more of a legato sound now, or a thought that we're trying to flow from note to note, but a good sound quality, and that relaxation, and that, you know, we still, even as it goes faster, we don't want to stress out too much. Not just be kind of skittering over the notes, still having a nice depth to the sound, but a nice relaxed sound. Anyway, so that's always a great way to practice something like this, right, where we've just got a steady stream of notes and we're trying to potentially maybe push our technique a little bit, maybe not, maybe it's easy for you, maybe it's a little bit of a challenge to get it at the speed you want, and it can be played, you know, at a variety of speeds. But that would be a great way to practice, as well as like sometimes pushing it for speed, etc. And as you do that, especially at a slower speed, and as you start to know the notes well enough to not have to worry too much about what's coming next, it's a great time to think about how you want to shape the piece, right? Are we getting more intense? Do we want to be getting a little bit louder, a little bit of a sense of a crescendo? Or maybe it's backing off a little bit. Maybe we want to just bring the volume down a little bit. Maybe we have some spots, I think it's, what is it? We've got two in a row of this. Left hand's the same as well. Maybe that second time is almost a bit of an echo effect. So there up to that nice G minor, right? So we've been basically in a lot of minor keys here, and a nice crescendo. Anyway, experimenting, right? And thinking about what does the music seem to be saying to you? How are you feeling? You know, what is it communicating to you? Do you want to get more excited? Do you want to back off a little bit? Is it less intense? Are we calming down? So not as much with the tempo, but more with the slight graduations in volume, and are we feeling like a crescendo or a decrescendo? Or maybe suddenly like bringing the level down a little bit, a little echo effect or something. So anyway, always great stuff to be aware of when you're practicing, and especially doing slow practice gives you some time to think about that. I want to mention two more things. This will be a fairly short episode. And one is just bar number 32, 33, bar 34. I can't remember if I talked about this in the Arranging Greensleeves project when I talked about writing this variation. But the left hand is doing this. Just single notes with two. A dot above them because, as I explained in the notes, I use a dot to indicate when to come off. In other words, we're going to play that note and come completely off the string with that hand. We won't be connected to any other string. So we're just playing two. I wasn't looking for a super staccato sound, because then you could use the thumb, right? But I wanted a slightly detached sound, so a slightly different sound than... And I think this does give maybe just a slightly different sound. Anyway, so you're not trying to muffle anything, but it is just a slightly different sound quality to me. And the final spot I want to talk about is a spot that I found working with students is probably the most difficult in this variation. Because most of the time we're just kind of trading back and forth, everything's pretty straightforward, but here suddenly we have to find this big chord. So this is bar 28, 29, getting from bar 30 into 31. So we get this. I'm going to play it slowly. So if we didn't have this chord on the bottom, if we could just go... It would be straightforward. It would be like a lot of other sections. But instead we've got this chord. And so what can happen is that there can be a slight pause between those bars as we get set to start bar 31 to find that chord. And a great thing to be aware of when you're practicing, right, is to be mindful in terms of how is it feeling. So sometimes when I'm practicing, maybe it's a sense of feeling that I just need to learn the notes a little bit better, right? My fingers, they'll be able to play this, they just need to know the notes. And sometimes when you're practicing, or when I'm practicing, it might be, oh, I always have a little bit of trouble in this spot, right? It always doesn't feel quite so comfortable. I better do something, zero in on that. So again, when you're practicing, just being aware of, are there spots that just aren't starting to feel comfortable, or that are always just a little bit not as good as you would like, right? So being aware that, oh, every time, this variation's starting to get under my hand, everything's starting to flow, but every time I'm having to take a little bit extra time in between the bars, right? There's a spot to practice. And so the idea is, right, that some of our most effective practice is when we can break something down and practice a very small section, because then we get to really zero in on what is bothering us, or what's difficult, and work on making it less difficult. So, in other words, instead of, say, going, doing that a bunch of times, excuse me, you could do that. That would help. But I think it would be much more effective to kind of analyze it and say, okay, now what is the difficult part about this? Is it the left hand? Well, the left hand is part of it. The fact that we have to do something with the left hand is, is just an extra thing. But the left hand has plenty of time to find these next notes. So just as long as you're aware of the fact that you have to move the left hand, it's not really the left hand. Instead, it's finding this chord, right? Because we don't have a lot of time. We got a 16th note, or if we're breaking it, we actually have to start it maybe a little bit before the beat. So we don't have a lot of time to find that chord. And in fact, we could go. But in fact, if you think about it, really what it is, it's getting from 2. We play 2, right? And at this point, none of our fingers are on the string. And now before, the thumb's still here. So before the thumb plays, we have to find these bottom 2 notes. We have to find this chord. So we can't find it. Still can't find it. There, we have to wait until 2 plays. So what we can do is practice going. Being aware of where we're going. Trying to groove that transition. And you might even play 2 and practice just finding those notes. Right? Zoom! The fingers just jump down. And once we've got that, feeling comfortable, ideally feeling faster than we need to play it, then we're ready to go back a little bit and maybe, let's see, maybe not all the way back, maybe halfway through the bar. Maybe even just those last right hand notes. Let's try that. Maybe add the left hand in. And now maybe the last half of the bar. And again, just a way to deal with spots. So like being aware of a spot that's maybe a little bit more difficult, and then trying to analyze what it is and how can I most effectively practice that. Obviously, we could just play the whole variation through a million times, but that spot might not get much better. Whereas by really, zooming right into to what is bothering us, we can actually be very efficient, and perhaps with very little time spent, that will not be a problem, and it will be much smoother. So anyway, just some practice ideas, I guess. So hope that was useful, and next week I'll be back with Variation 2. See you in a week's time. Cheers.